Hello fairy friends, it is Liz. I am back with 3 different soft sculpture dolls that I'm giving a makeover to. Right now I'm covering over the faded eyes, and I think I can also, not just that they're faded, I don't feel like they have enough character, so I think I can make them look a little bit more charming and give them a little bit more personality. So I'm taking Apple Barrel English Navy acrylic paint, and you can use whatever color you want. If you like it to be green or lavender or brown, you choose. It's up to you. It'll be your doll if you're going to give a makeover. What you'll want to do is, I would suggest that you choose the darkest shade of the color that you're liking to start with. So here I am on the other eye, and I did speed this up, believe it or not. I'm being very, very careful and slow with this because unlike the vinyl and the porcelain eyes, if I goof up and splash some paint on the face, it's not going to come out very easily because this is fabric. So I'm being very careful, only loading up the tiniest amount of paint at a time. And that'll do it for the painted on eyes. Now moving on, or that was the iron on eyes. Moving on to the painted on eyes. These pupils, as you can see, are very tiny. And then there's like a little tiny dot, one dot to reflect light. And I think I can do better with this. Though I'm sure they were darling for their time, and the artist did the best that they could. And you know, we all grow with our skills and stuff, so I often go back and touch up even my own things. So, doing the same thing I did with the iron-on eyes on the doll previous, I'm doing the same thing here with this painted eye. Now, there is a slight difference. I can see and feel the fabric texture more than I did the first doll with the iron-on eyes. This isn't as smooth. So again, you just have to be careful, and we'll let that dry. Now I'm going to take the English Navy and some white, and now I'm going to move on to the center of the iris, and I'm just lightening it up a little. There's the brush that I use, and I have a bigger brush here, and that's just for mixing. I'm mixing that up to a shade that is, I don't know, a little bit lighter. Well, maybe it's a lot lighter. I don't know. Let's just look and see what I do. I go all the way around, just leaving a little bit of that English Navy showing through on that iris. And this is just the style that I'm doing. You do not have to do this. If you just like the one color, then you would move on to the pupil. Now I'm doing my little trick that I like to do to add depth. I take a cotton swab and I dab off in the center some of that pale, the lighter blue paint to give it a little bit of depth. And now I'm going to go on, add the blue paint, and it's important to do that dabbing excuse me, while the paint is wet. Otherwise it's just on there. Especially with this, there's no taking some acetone and wiping it away on fabric. So, and I usually twist between my forefinger and my thumb the cotton swab so that it's not fuzzy, and it's wadded down really tight so it doesn't spread the paint when I go to spin the Q-tip or cotton swab, whatever brand you get. And we'll let that dry, and we do need to move on to the pupil. And what I'm using for the pupil is just that English Navy again. And again, it's totally up to you. If you'd rather use black for the pupil, then have at it. I like to use the dark navy blue for my pupils because I feel like it's softer. And I have added a little bit of black to the navy to darken up the pupil. But for this purpose, for this doll right here, I'm just doing the navy for the pupil. Now don't worry if you can't make a perfect circle, if there's like a little bit of some goofs. Now let's go back to the iron-on eyes. I've already put the lighter blue, obviously, and now I'm doing the pupil. And don't worry, I have a little trick. You know what they say, I think the saying, the enemy of good is perfect. I think that's how you say it, but I always said the enemy of good is better. Because when you try for better, you kind of goof up the good that you already had. So if you're having problems getting that pupil perfectly round, I have a little trick for that. And sometimes it helps to let it dry and come back to it. Now I'm going to correct the yellowing in the white of this eye. And again, this doll is the iron-on eyeballs that they had at the time. So I'm just taking a little bit of white paint and correcting that. And it does take a little bit of time. The cheek kind of comes up, so I'm pushing down the cheek so I don't accidentally get any paint. I'm actually very proud of myself because I'm not really that careful of a painter. So far so good. I better knock on wood, knock on my head so I don't jinx myself. But I think really the trick is taking your time and only putting as much as you need of the paint. And you can always add some more. You just can't take it off when you smudged its little nose. And you'll notice the eyebrows and the lining around these eyes and the eyelashes are a lot crisper than the hand-painted dolls, the other two. So I'll address that and touch up the eyebrow eyelashes and the lining around the eyes on those. On these, I'm leaving it as is because that's still crisp and not faded. And believe it or not, I actually sped up this. And then the last step, which is my little trick for correcting where you didn't get the circle, the pupil exactly right, just choose the worst offense on your doll and make that be the biggest dot. Just remember what you do on one eye with the reflection you have to do on the other. It's reflecting the same light that's in the room. It can't have two different sizes and placing of the reflection. Now here we see all three with their eyes painted. The soft sculpture is not perfect. Whoever Sharon was, she did an amazing job, and they still have lots of character, and they don't have to be perfect for me to love them, and they sure do look a lot better with their eyes all touched up. And when you see them again, this middle one won't have this crazy hair, and I'll add hair to the big one, maybe the little one. And in part 2, I will be going over just really quickly how to touch up the eyelashes and the brows. The middle one, that's the iron-on one, doesn't need anything. So I'll be touching that up in part 2. And then you will see them with their cute little clothes. And the final cherry on top will be the blushing, which I love to do last because it really brings them to life. So thank you for watching and stay tuned for part 2. Bye-bye.